Yes, sir.
For
So what you have in front of you is the miscellaneous fees, not the building fees or anything. I'm still working on that. But the different miscellaneous fees for different things that happen in the city. A lot of those haven't been updated in forever. We need to look at bringing them into this time frame, into what is the reality of doing business. So I have gone through and looked at all the different fees and everything, and you can look by the different columns there, the initial fee, what it was. Some of them are still that fee. There was some changes, but you can see only one of them shows a resolution back in 1995 for fences. And that was, and then back in 2021, there were some new proposals, and I don't know if those ever got passed or anything. I know there was some changes. There was, I guess, to the cemetery fee, that might have been changed. I don't even know what page that's on.
I seen it too, Bill. Where the heck did it go? Did it not get?
Well, I don't know. That was,
Where is, he gave me it.
huh. I don't know what happened to that one, but that supposedly was changed. We'll have to find out what happened to that and where that's at, but I have gone through and looked at them, and you can see my proposals are in the yellow for 2025, and I'll just pick the first one, fences. That fee has been forever, has been $15. Well, $15 doesn't even cover the cost of issuing the permit or anything, or me looking at them. So I've looked at upping that fee to $60, which includes a $10 technology fee, which Aberdeen initiated a technology fee a number of years ago to pay for upgrades to computers and software, and then for issuing of their permits. And I think that's something that we need to look at, is putting in that technology fee.
Are these for, do these apply to people who are replacing fences? It's just new fences?
No, yeah, it's, even if they're replacing the whole thing, that's gonna be a new fence. If they're replacing a few boards here and there, then no, they won't need a permit. A lot of times people will put up a fence, not even thinking that they need a fence permit. And that's because it's kind of really all over the board as far as whether cities charge for it or counties or anything.
Do we ask if they're replacing an existing, you had a section of it blow down in the wind, do you need a permit to get?
I take each one and I look at them and make the determination as to whether they need a permit or not. If it's just the one section where it's like 8 or 16 feet, I say, no, they don't.
Right.
But if they're replacing the whole thing, then they do.
What's the
But
wait time on these kinds of,
it's what
wait time on approval for these kinds of permits?
depends on what the permit is for. Like a fence, generally, if they get it to me and it's a day that I'm working, I'll approve it right. Otherwise, it could be a couple of days to a week. Some of these others are going to take more because of the time frames. the involvement in them, what I have to look at. Uh, You know, like, if you go here, look at on the last page where it says variance. Right now, we're charging $175. That isn't even paid for the cost of sending out all the notices, posting them in the Daily World and everything. And you can see where in 2021, it cost $750. I moved it to $300. $750. I mean, county charges $1,000. Hopefully, I think they're close to $1,000. So, but there on the variance, that takes, you've got a 10-day period where I have to get out the notices, then schedule the hearing. So it could be, upwards of 30 days before anything is done on that.
There's a reason why it dropped as opposed to.
Well, that was proposed and it was never picked up.
Oh, okay.
So that's why the 750. If you want, we can move it to the 750.
Oh, okay.
So I just went with 300 because I figured, well, that's gonna cover the cost of the mailings, cost of legal thing. But that is another one that we might even look at again, because I think the legal stuff for the Daily World, depending on how much the wording is, has gone up even more. But you can see just, basically looking at all the different ones. I looked at Aberdeen's fees, I've looked at Hoquiam's fees, I looked at Westport's. County didn't really even look at them that much because of the fact that they don't even have a lot of some of this stuff. So it's really kind of just a moot point to look at how they are.
So the shoreline, that, talking about like the river side, is that what that would?
Yeah, that would be
The river side?
the
What exactly,
Chehalis River.
yeah, what exactly does that cover?
That depends on the development, what they want to do.
Right.
And whether it meets the requirements that you have to be a certain distance from the shoreline, you're gonna have a hearing.
Right, I was gonna say, what exactly is the shoreline, parameters around, just say if you were gonna be building houses.
I would have to look in the shorelines book to see. Most of the time it's 150 feet.
Okay. Is there any?
But there are certain exceptions, like over along here where most of our shoreline is at. Anything on this side of the dike is
That's what I was wondering.
not going to be, within that area, that buffer zone.
Yeah, does the dike included in that 150 feet from the
Yeah.
shoreline? Okay.
So I tried to, be reasonable on the fees and what I proposed, just to take into consideration of what, my time frame, how much, how long the time it takes me to do things and based on my wages or what I make. And then if there's any postings, legal stuff that need to be, filed with the county, which is gonna cost money. And so, do you have any specific questions and comments as far as, do you think the fees are out of line, or we need to up them, or?
You gave me an early copy,
Yeah,
and
and then Carrie went through and modified these a little bit. That's where you see the green and the orange
Sure.
and the yellow, so.
Sure. And I looked through them, and I had asked you earlier what other comparisons you had done, and you told me about the other Aberdeen, Hoquiam and the such of going through those and nothing jumped off the page at me that I thought was something we really were, that I thought I should be concerned with. It all looks pretty much above the board or across the board to be what we need to do. It's been a lot of years since it's been done. And for the fact, like you say, the cost of anything, whether it's you or anybody else, has went up on any of this stuff. And we just need to definitely recover what the costs are for us, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one is on fences.
Yeah,
$15 is kind of ridiculous because my time,
yeah,
going out and looking and reviewing it just doesn't even really cover the cost at all, or issuing the permit.
Could you say a little more about this industrial bond that apparently we haven't charged for before, but we're looking at 5,000?
We didn't really have that in there, and the only industrial area that we would really have would be the mill across the way. Yeah, so I threw that in there, so $5,000, is a bond gonna cover that if that mill needs to be torn down and they don't do it?
right.
No.
Right.
Well, so can you clarify a little bit about what that fee covers? So what service?
Basically, the bond would cover, well, in any demolition, whether it's that industrial or residential. It covers the city if somebody pulls out a demolition permit, starts the demolition and doesn't finish it,
I see.
then the city has to go in and finish it and clean it up. $500 for residential bond, probably not gonna really cover too much of it. Most of the time, the cleanups on demolitions, you're looking at grade and fill, 10, 15, 20 yards, $500 is gonna cover that. But
I mean, so they're bonds and they're refundable?
yeah, the bonds are refundable. If they do the work and they get it done and it's approved, they get that back.
So the grading, that's for like you're gonna be building a house and that grading. Grading for it?
Yeah, it depends on to the extent of the grading. Most of the time it's for roads and everything. Because if you're building a house, to dig out for the foundation, everything, that's gonna be included in the building permit.
Oh, okay.
You're not gonna get charged a separate fee for grading.
So I see we went instead of a proposed, you're just doing a flat fee as opposed to the price plus how much, whatever we're bringing in.
Yeah, well, you'll see here where the proposed is $500 for the one, where before it was, it was for 194 to 310. That was based on how much you were bringing in. And so you can see in 2021, it was proposed a flat fee of 194 and for $14 for every 1,000 cubic yards after that.
So it could possibly end up being more, depending on how much stuff we have to bring in.
Yeah.
Bill, I'll go back to the fence. You started with fences. And do we, and this is from past experience, is there an actual ordinance that tells me what I can and can't and how high and how many feet and how
Yes.
close to the street?
Yes.
There is, but
Fences, fences are supposed to be on your property line, but we have a form that you can fill out. It's a permissive use permit where you can put the fence to the sidewalk that you have to fill in order to be able to do that. That's in the city right away. Because the streets are
So
like,
many
some of
feet
them are 60 feet wide, some of them are 80 feet wide, but most people like to have the fence up to the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Well, that gives the city permission, if they have to go in and fix a utility or whatever, that the city will tell you that they need to do that work, you need to take the fence down. If you don't take the fence down, then the city will take the fence down.
Understood, yeah.
So basically, the property owner is, or the city is giving the property owner permission to use that section in their yard, which technically is, the city has an easement for.
We have all this spelled out in the ordinance, but the ordinance itself, I don't recall, directs citizens to file a permit. So I can see where someone would look at that and say, okay, I can build a fence as long as it follows these guidelines.
No, I think I'd have to look at that, but I'm sure that the ordinance says that you're required to have a fence permit.
I wonder if there might be a separate ordinance for that that's not under the same line as, because I've looked at it a couple of times. I don't recall seeing that.
The reason I bring it up, when I built the fences around my place down there, I came down to get a permit. And I was given a basic building permit. And nowhere that I found on the basic building permit, it had anything to do with fence. It was building a structure, a house on the building permit. So I come back down and I asked, this was the previous administration, what are the parameters to my fence? I understand I have to be 4 feet at corners and this and this. And the response, and why I'm bringing this up is the paperwork. My response was, look down the street, Mr. Skinner, and build the fence the same as your neighbors. That just didn't really settle real well with me at the time. I went ahead and knew that I could build the fence on the sidewalk because the next door neighbor had built his. I'd been told by the guy a block away that yes, at the 25 feet back or 50 feet back from the intersection, you have to have it at 4 feet. So
That's spelled out in the city ordinance as far as the height of the fences, whether it could be 6 feet, 4 feet, or 3. And that, if you've got a cornered lot like you do,
Yeah.
the corner generally, most of the time, if you've got a solid wood fence, can only be 3 feet tall,
Sure.
because that's called the site.
Site, right, yeah,
Yeah, it's traffic, it has to do with traffic.
understood, yeah.
The application should have on their fences,
Uh-huh,
on the application itself for building permits.
okay,
On the green card, the actual permit, it should have other improvements. That would be
okay.
for anything else.
Again, this was the past staff and there are staff now. I just want to make sure that they have the understanding of when people come in and ask them, whether they just direct them to our code enforcement or they try to answer them, they've got the answers that they need in front of them. They've got something that they can hand a homeowner and say, here is what you have to
With
do.
the current staff, with everything that they've got to learn and do, have been directing everything to me.
That,
So I'm the
Yeah.
one who returns the phone calls, answers the questions
yeah,
that any citizen has concerning anything
Yeah.
to do with building,
okay,
so that we don't get that miscommunication.
okay.
And I am gonna add, that's why it's directed to Bill, because he's the expert there, and we have a consistent message to our citizens.
There also, in what you commented earlier there, Kim, there is something in the city ordinance about, I can't remember the specific wording or anything as far as, I have to look at, now if we're building a house, okay, rather than the fence. When they said, look down the street, okay, yeah, you're going to look, when I look at variances and everything, say you want to build your house within the setbacks, okay? I look at all those properties around, and there is a thing, and like I said, in the ordinance, it says that I can take the average of where all those properties are.
Right.
To give you that permission to build within those setbacks. As long as it conforms with all the rest of what's in line of sight.
If I may, Bill?
Yeah.
We can also suggest get to go to our city website and click the icon for city code, and all they have to do is type the word fence in the search, and it gives them all of it instantaneously through our municipal code on our website.
All that's been updated.
I just
Yeah.
looked and it's
Oh,
all,
okay.
That's, yeah.
Does our form need any updating, with any of those changes or anything, or has it been a while since that's been looked at, or?
Well, it's been a while since that form has been redone.
Yeah,
It was redone when I came here. Does it need any updating? Yeah, there might be some, but generally not.
okay.
So I tried, when I did all the forms and everything, I looked at many, many different cities, counties all over the state to pick out, a lot of the stuff I picked out from Kitsap County,
Right.
so.
And it's very well we're updating. the
Yeah.
form is-
Well, Yeah, basically, all we're doing here is just updating, looking to update the resolution, the fees that we charge.
Thanks, Bill.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Cedarwood? Okay, so next, during this workshop, we have Councilman Nguyen, who has a presentation he'd like to present this evening.
My wife would give a better presentation, but
Yeah.
I guess
Library
I'll
hasn't
stand
had
up
one.
here if someone else will. Hey, good evening, everyone. So I'm here today for the first of probably numerous presentations on the Cosmopolis Revitalization Plan. This is something that I've talked about with my fellow council members and the mayor and numerous citizens over the past year and a half. And so I'm excited to be able to finally kind of share a little bit of this with all of you. Next slide, please. Okay, so what is the Cosmopolis Revitalization Plan? So the Cosmopolis Revitalization effort is a predominantly citizen-led effort with support from the city of Cosmopolis to strategically manage projects that will improve the city as guided by citizen preferences and contributions. This is a 4-part plan, and it's informed by 3 guiding sources. We'll break each of those down. So, what does bringing the plan to life entail? Because as we start talking about some of these projects, you're gonna say, well, how do we actually do this, given the state of our city, the budget, low staffing and everything? So how will we pay for the plan? The projects are going to be started according to citizens' interest and feasibility. So that means that it's the citizens that will decide what they value, what they prioritize, and then based on what resources we have available, how possible it is for us to accomplish that project, right? So as a general rule, projects in the plan will be paid for by citizens who are donating time, services, and funding towards initiatives that they want to see realized. So we see these kinds of efforts happening in our city all the time over the past several years. We'll look at some examples of those, and we'll kind of see how that might connect to the work moving forward. What's the city's role in the plan? The citizens are leading it, and they're putting forward most of the funds and talent and time. What is the city going to do? So the city can help citizens navigate obstacles to completing projects, such as provide necessary consent and approvals, assist with grant applications. It usually requires the city to sign off on the grant. Ensure compliance with laws and regulations, and that can include sometimes like insurance. Might not be exactly a law and regulation, but the city might need to check with insurance and say, hey, what do we have to do to mitigate our risks and make sure that our insurance bills aren't going way up? And assist with access and maintenance of facilities related to projects. So lots of things that citizens have these great ideas for, they're willing to help with, but they don't necessarily have the permission and the access to go and do those things, right? So the city then can get involved and say, okay, well, we'll let you know what kind of bureaucratic red tape we need to be able to navigate to bring this project to life, and we'll help you do that part. So citizens provide, sort of the meat of what it is. They say, this is what we want to do. We can pay for it, we can provide skilled labor, we can put the time into it. But city, we need you to help us make sure that this all happens on the up and up. It doesn't open the city to legal liability and other risks, and just generally everything is copacetic. Okay. In some cases, city might be able to contribute funds, such as if funds are already allocated in the operating budget, or there's a city grant or something like that. Sometimes the funds might end up living with the city, or it might align with something that we have to do anyway. So, it's not saying that the city won't ever help out, but it'll have to be a really judicious case. Okay, so what are the 4 plans? We talk about the Cosmopolis revitalization effort. There are 4 different sort of sub-plans to that. The first of that is going to be the events plan. We'll have a facilities plan, a beautification plan, and a marketing plan. I'll give you an example of each of those. So the events plan is really just asking citizens a question: what type of events do you want to see in our city? What types of things would you like to see the city organizing? Of course, there's all sorts of things citizens are already organizing. Past example is a tree lighting ceremony that a bunch of citizens came together and said, we want to do this, and myself and some other council members helped organize. We worked with the fire department to secure that as the venue, and got the tree decorated, and we did that stuff. But that was based on donations from citizens who funded the decorations and the cookies and the treats. We got those hot drink dispensers, which we purchased with the donations, and now those are available for future city events. And then some suggestions I've heard for future examples would be like movies in the park. So a few people have come to me and said, it would be great if we could do like a movies in the park sort of event. Okay, I think that sounds like a cool idea too. What do we need to make that happen? So that's where the Cosmopolis revitalization plan comes in. But first we need to know, what all do folks want to do, right? And then what are the steps to make sure that we can actually do those things? Do we have the resources? The facilities plan asks the question, what types of structures and facilities would allow you to enjoy our city more fully? So a past example would be the Friends of Highland Park and all the work that they did to make that park a much more usable space. They built a pavilion, playground equipment, pickleball courts, and all that sort of thing. Those are structures and facilities that allow us to use the city in a different way. Future example might be an outdoor stage, or it might be an outdoor screen. If we want to have movies in the park, we might need a screen somewhere, right? That's another suggestion that I've heard. It wouldn't be great if we had a stage somewhere where we could do live performances. So again, this is a place where citizens and the city would have to work together. Because right now the city cannot afford to fund a project like this, right? We just don't have the funds for that. Citizens might have the funds, they might have the construction skills, and they might have the time to do it. But they don't have the permission to just waltz into the park and start putting up a stage, right? They need to coordinate with the city to get the necessary permissions, to make sure that the stage is built to specifications that might affect things like insurance costs, safety, and other things. So this is where we kind of have to work together to make these things happen if we want to see them actually come to life. The beautification plan just asks, what should the city of Cosmopolis look like? What should be our vibe? So a lot of people have different ideas about how we can make the city a more beautiful, visually beautiful place. And one example of that is our Cosy pedal pushers, who are walking the streets daily over the spring and summer to maintain our flowers on the street side. A future example that I've had a lot of people suggest is restoring and painting the historic marker at the treaty grounds. So that's at the Pump Park, right? We have the big mural, it's fading away. And a lot of people want to see that mural either restored or or relocated and maybe do something about that big pump as well while we're at it. Maybe we could do something to make that nicer. And then lastly, our marketing plan. So what will future businesses, residents, and visitors learn about our city and how will they learn? We have the Cosmopolis Facebook group. That one's a little bit more outward facing. We also have, we have multiple Facebook groups. We have some that are more for citizens to talk to each other about city business. And then we have some that are a little bit more about like what's going on in our community. But a future example would be a Cosmopolis attractions map. So how are we communicating to people, both within our city and outside of our city, about things to do in the city of Cosmopolis? All right, we've got all these people now who are staying at our RV park, and I don't know how they're finding out what's available in our city, but wouldn't it be great if we had something we could just hand them and say, hey, go check these things out while you're here, and then get out. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so let's look at an example suggestion that sees out all four of these plans might come into play. And we might see a lot of these different components work together. So one suggestion that I heard recently, which I thought personally was brilliant, right? But I'm not the one who's paying for all this stuff, so not up to me. Someone suggested, what if we had a banquet space at Cosmopolis Treaty Grounds? So that's again at the Pump Park, as some people know it, with the big mural by the road. Well, if we were to do that, then we could have an event, a Thanksgiving banquet at the Treaty Grounds. So I think that's a cool idea, right? It's historic treaty grounds. I mean, I can't think of a more appropriate event for Thanksgiving. But we would also need facilities if we were to do it. Right? So their suggestion was, what if we had like 1 to 4 large banquet tables? An outdoor fireplace would be cool. We could have maybe a roadside screen to reduce traffic noise from the road nearby, and maybe even a direct path to the bike trail. So that's a lot of structures and facilities, right? But that would all kind of help tie that space together to make it much more usable. I don't know about you, but I just kind of walk by it, and sometimes I go like this when I'm not feeling like I want to look at the work that's needed to be done there. So beautification wise, we could paint the pump building, restore the mural, add a little landscaping, and then we just market it. Come celebrate Thanksgiving at the historic Cosmopolis Treaty. So are you seeing a vision here? Yeah, and so what, maybe this isn't like your cup of tea, but you can see how like we can start tackling these things bit by bit and work towards a bigger vision than just one small project here, one small project there. We can actually do some really cool things that will benefit. Okay, catch my breath here a second. So I say the plan is informed by 3 guiding sources. So let's talk about those 3 guiding sources. The first one is the Cosmopolis Revitalization Study, which I'll share a little bit of information with you here in a moment. The second is the Cowlitz Wakaipum, did I say that right? Wakaipum Council of Governments Trail Scoping Report. You might be out of breath just listening to me say that. The last and most important one is your input as currency. Okay, so let's look at each of these. The Cosmopolis Revitalization Study. I just want to quickly address, when you see this, you'll see it says Brownfields area-wide planning. So let's talk about that real quick. The Cosmopolization, maybe I'll shorten it.
That was good.
Yeah, Cosmopolis Revitalization Study was completed by an external agency in May of 2020. It's a 181-page report on the City of Cosmopolis website. You can find it under Community Development. Yes, I have read that report. That's our city's website. Okay, and one of the things you'll note in that study is it talks about brownfield sites in Cosmopolis. So I just want to quickly address part of the reason for this study was to find ways to help improve Cosmopolis as a city for its citizens. One of the challenges that the study tried to address was what are called these brownfield sites, which you can see marked by this little kind of red shield icon. And can I get the next? Yeah, so the EPA defines a brownfield as a real property, the expansion, redevelopment, or reuse of which may be complicated by the presence, potential presence of hazardous substance, pollutant, or contaminant. In other words, something has happened on that real estate that might present a danger to people's health and wellness if we were to develop on that site. So we can go by our beautiful riverside property and think, why isn't anybody building anything here? That's why, because, next point please. In extreme cases, brownfield cleanup costs can far exceed a site's market value. Thus, many developers avoid brownfield sites and focus on development of other properties. So when they see, oh, this real estate, maybe it costs $250,000, but I'm gonna have to pay $250,000 in cleanup fees as well. Then maybe I'll develop someplace else. This is the actual map from the study. So all these bright green spots, they were identified as a high risk for being a brownfield site. So this is kind of what we're up against in terms of attracting developers to actually build on those waterfront properties. It's a little bit of a barrier. So one of the things we want to do is make this space more attractive in general. We want people to see that, you know, the people who live here, the people who visit here, they're really using this space. This is an active small town, and there's potential here for business or resident. Okay, I'm gonna go over, so there are 10 parts to the suggested improvements that the agency that did the study ended up recommending in their final report. I'm just gonna give you that as a bullet list. If you wanna go through and read the full report, you'll find a lot more information. Some of these, I believe, have already been done. A lot of them have not been done. Some of them, it's unclear if they've been done or not. Maybe some of you can tell me. So one of the recommendations was to improve and develop the boat launch back behind the expand trail connections. So that's connecting the Dyke Trail to other trails in our trail system. Perform streetscape enhancements. So I think that one might have included the new streetlights. I'm not sure if that was part of it. I don't know how old those are.
I can't remember the date, but part of that was the new boulevard, the street lights, and then we just did the LED light.
Yeah, I believe that was part of it. Establish citywide wayfinding. So this would be part, I have down here in parentheses so you can see how these would relate to the 4 different plans, right? So this would be that market piece. When we say wayfinding, we're talking about having kind of this map of where should people go if they want to hit all the major attractions in our town. Construct gateway elements. So this one I think is done. This was actually just the signs, I think, as you enter from both sides. I think maybe one of those was done, but the other side didn't have one. I'm not real clear on the history. But this is a marketing piece, right? It's good signage for our city. Redevelopment and create a civic node for facilities. So this is kind of already happening with a new building. When they talk about the civic node in the study, what they're really talking about is, hey, you've got police, fire, city hall services right here in this little area we're calling a node where you're providing civic services. I know it sounds real exciting, but it makes it easy for you to come down as a citizen and have, you know, all these services kind of at your fingertips. Enhance the historical marker. So we already talked quite a bit about that one. Perform pedestrian enhancements. So we really want to see that people feel at ease and feel that they have a reason to just be walking around downtown, First Street, Second Street, right? There's stuff down here, but in some cases, there's such a large spread where there's all the undeveloped sites, and there's mixed in residences, that sometimes people just get in their car and they drive down. So we want to make sure that there's an appealing place for us to walk around, but we have to feel safe doing that or anything. Address the plan for vehicle parking, and I think this one was done. I think that's the street side parking along the highway. And then extend Huntley Road. This is, for us, this is Third Street. The proposal in there was to connect Third Street with Huntley in Aberdeen, which I've talked to a lot of people who don't like this idea. I see some people nodding. I also don't like this. I kind of personally don't like this idea either, but it's, again, it's not what I like. We don't have to do any of the things in the plan. So, you know, if there's something you don't like, don't worry about it. Probably a lot of other people don't really like it either. All right, so the second plan that I referred to was the Wahkiakum Council of Governments Grays Harbor County Trail Scoping Report, Aberdeen Montesano Connection. Now it says Aberdeen Montesano Connection, but I feel like that must be some marketing talk. So if we go to the next slide, we can see that this Aberdeen Montesano Connection is a 32-page study, outlines a proposed plan to create a 10-foot wide shared use path from Cosmopolis to Montesano along the Chehalis River Dike Trail. Starts in Cosmopolis in the plan, and I'll show you a map here in a moment. But the idea is that they want to build this really long, usable trail for bikes, horseback, walking, that folks can take all the way from here to Montesano. So the study itself identifies barriers to trail creations, like, hey, what about where there's a bridge? How are we going to get pedestrians across that bridge? What about this strip of land that's owned by this corporation? Or, you know, what about this place where there's a hill? So it addresses all the different barriers to creating a continuous trail, and then it proposes solutions to how they might manage to build that trail anyway. They're not requesting any funds from the city of Cosmopolis, though they do suggest that we improve infrastructure around the identified city trails. They're, you know, helping us out by creating this connection. Well, wouldn't it be great if there was a lot to do for folks to actually come onto the trail, or, you know, actually, I can't imagine walking, maybe biking all the way from Montesano to Cosmopolis, or just connecting with it through the riverway. Folks who are kayaking, doing other boating activities. So the preferred alignment for their plan starts at Cosmopolis Lions Club and Lions Park and connects to the existing Cosmopolis Trail. That's directly from their study. You can find this report on the Wahkiakum, the Council of Governments website. I think the link is right there, cwcog.org. And I'm going to do my best to invite them to come speak to us at some point about their plans. Here's a visual of the plan, so you can see it does start right here at Lions Park. I didn't do this, this was that. And so they have this sort of walkable route already identified within our town, this little loop. And, you know, wouldn't you know, that's what a lot of the citizens and folks here in our city leadership have been talking about. That's where we should really be focusing, is on making this part of our city a really great, usable, walkable space for the people that live here, for, you know, the people that are passing by and will maybe spend some money in our city. And then we have a real clear path to send them out. Okay, so yeah, a lot of what we're going to be aimed at when we look at these ideas is prioritizing initiatives around this First Street corridor. So focusing on that downtown walking route is going to do a few things. It's going to benefit citizens of Cosmopolis with a more functional and active downtown. More people down there means, you know, more opportunities to socialize with people in the city, more things to do down the line. You know, it establishes Cosmopolis as a vibrant small town. It brings attention and traffic to local businesses. And ultimately, all this drives further benefit to us as citizens through additional revenue and city improvements. So the more benefit we see, it's going to be a positive feedback from the snowball effect. Okay, and then that last piece is the citizens themselves and their participation. So how can you help future town halls related to these 4 plans and share your ideas. There's plenty of time for you to start thinking now. We're still in the brainstorming stage of this. And, I've already heard so many great suggestions. But what I don't want to do is jump forward into a plan where a lot of the citizens haven't learned about this, haven't heard about it, and didn't feel like they have the opportunity to have their voice heard as a part of the plan. So I want to make sure everybody has the chance to start having their ideas and share their good ideas. And then, of course, also be thinking about what can you contribute. So if there are, things that you're willing to do, if you're willing to pledge funds down the line to make something happen, start thinking about that. Start thinking about, is there a certain kind of service or skill that I can offer, whether that's with something related to creating facilities or managing events, working at events, beautification. These are all things that we have people in town who can help out. And I just encourage you to dream big. We can do anything if enough people are interested and willing to chip in. I think it's better for us to have a really bold vision for what we would like to have, and then we'll invariably encounter barriers, and we'll find that things are going to be harder to do sometimes than we'd like them to be. A great idea that in theory, I could go out and build a stage at the park on a weekend, right? Well, with the way government works, it's going to take longer than that, right? There's going to be more red tape than that. So we have to be patient, not get discouraged when things take longer. But at the same time, that gives us the ability to keep developing a bigger dream and making progress towards it little by little. It all doesn't have to get done overnight. It doesn't have to get done in the next year. This is our city until we move away, basically, right? So, we've got to keep being willing to invest that energy into it. And part of that means continuing to have a dream for it. There will be, I don't have one for you yet, but there will be a volunteer, or I guess I should call it a contributor form, that you'll be able to sign up for and, say, I'd like to get communications about the plan, and give some ideas about how you can help. So if you're willing to, occasionally donate money, that will be helpful to know so that we can ask you, hey, what would you be willing to pledge for this? We won't usually come knocking at your door and say, hey, give us $100. What we'll instead do is say, hey, some people are interested in something like a stage. How much would you be willing to pledge for? And then if we get real close to the number that we need, then we know, okay, we've got a green light here. We've got at least one of the things that we need in order to make this happen. Let's go to the city and see, okay, what other things are we going to have to look out for to make this happen. So part of my role in this is just going to be coordinating between the citizens and the city and helping you all figure out, okay, do you have what you need? And that's pretty much it for me. With that, I just want to encourage people to help out even on the projects that aren't necessarily your personal priority, because every project we do complete gets us that much closer to the next one and to the next one. So even if the outdoor stage becomes the most popular one and we do that first, the sooner we get that one done, the sooner we get to the next one. Okay, thank you everyone for your time. You can contact me if you have questions or you have ideas for the plan that you want to share. And have a lot of time.
So,
Yeah.
Jeremy, that's inspiring. I think we have very similar visions as many of our council do. We see this community as a very special place that we want to grow and improve. And I would encourage council, we have some citizens online tonight, but really, if you like this idea, talk to citizens, help encourage this movement so we can continue to build our community and improve it. And we do have time for questions. We'll start the council meeting at 7. So if there's any questions, Jeremy is here to answer.
I know the boat ramp is always a big, somebody wants, but unfortunately, we don't own the land. I would think that would probably be the biggest obstacle probably to overcome, has anybody like approached, anything around?
I don't know if in the past anybody's approached, the mill owners about that. I know that, you know, we're still kind of trying to reestablish some lines of communication there. And that's the kind of thing, you know, that we might have to approach from multiple fronts. You know, if the citizens are saying, you know, hey, we really want to do this, here's a petition, and the city is saying, hey, we want to work with you, then, you know, that's the kind of thing where sometimes, we have to just do what we can and know that we might not be able to actually, you know, enforce change. For example, one thing people will point out with the beautification plan is, oh, it'd be nice if all the buildings had a certain look to them. Well, those are private property. We can't force people to change the appearance of their buildings. But we can, you know, put forward a positive vision and say, we'd like to think this way, and anybody who wants to buy into that, then can. Yeah, so sometimes it's just a question of, yeah, we might run into a barrier that's not just red tape, but black tape, like, hey, no, I'm not gonna work with you.
Yeah, that 10-foot wide path, that sounds quite the pipe dream on that one too.
Quite a project, yeah.
Cause are they like connecting with the rails to trails and utilizing that and just making it wider? Is that what that?
I think in some cases, in general, I think they're treating a lot of the retired railway as kind of a no-touch area, actually, but I'm not, but you can definitely dig through the whole plan and look at it. There's a lot there. I mean, they put a lot of thought into it.
The map that you showed was, as far as I could see, was on the old railroad grade, once it got out to Blue Slough. And went
Yeah.
through Melbourne area,
Yeah.
and that rails to trails, that organization came in after the railroad went away, and they put the trail in, they put signs up that told you what dandelion was what
Yeah.
on there, and it just, again, funding went away, and it went away. That's an obstacle that we continue to run into. The beautification of the street, the state giving you the money to put the bulb outs and redo our street. They didn't give you the money for maintenance to
Okay,
upkeep
thank you.
the bulb outs and the flower pots and all that. It was really pretty and it's a great idea and but then 5 years down the road, they look like they do now. You know, we have to end this kind of planning, which I think is outstanding, but also look at what it's going to do to maintain all of these structures and all of that. That mural was put up there quite a few years ago and was fantastic. And yes, it has not been maintained. It's
Right,
just in
exactly.
tough shape.
Yeah, and maintenance is gonna be a key consideration in all of these things. You know, I think one thing we definitely have to consider is, you look at the spaces that haven't been maintained so far. And one thought can certainly be, well, we did this before and look at it now. But another thought is, well, if we go and do something, you know, going and doing something else improves the appeal of the place, right? It's still an improvement,
Sure.
right? So if we go and we do something else like, you know, we do, some landscaping down there, right? But we don't get to the mural, we don't get to the building, it's still gonna be an improvement.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely we have to work with the city with respects to ongoing maintenance costs. That's gonna be, you know, a cost that the city incurs as we do these kinds of projects, but our hope is to keep those costs minimal and realistic.
And what I've seen, you know, when we first started, I'm not part of it. I'm a volunteer for the nonprofit Friends of Highland Parks and Parks of Cosmopolis. I think it was, you know, the first thing that had been done in this city in a very, very long time. And it actually kind of inspired other people to take on projects and start looking at adopting parks. You know, we have Olympic Terrace that we have individuals working on that. We have Lions Park, you know, we have the state grant for Mill Creek, and people who have said to me, I want to be a volunteer, I'll be part of that. I think you have to be a dreamer and someone willing to put in the time to make a difference, and we saw small improvements, and I believe, you know, you're going to see improvements, and that's just reaching out talking to people, sharing that enthusiasm, and getting that volunteer. And the city will support this as much as we can. You know, I have to look at all legal aspects of it, and I'm learning a lot about that myself. But definitely on board and supporting whatever we can do. Anything else from the council? Okay,
The historical aspect of things, the boat launch was owned by the city at one point. In the late seventies, they gave that to Weyerhaeuser, with the agreement that Weyerhaeuser would keep the access open, and they were supposed to make improvements there, the dock and everything that used to be there. And so, in a marketing aspect or in a conversation with the new owners, that's something I think that, hey, look, you know, we used to own this, but we gave it to them, never happened, we'd like it back to be able to pursue this. And
Yeah, and that's the difficulty we have with some of the handshake kind of
It is.
agreements that we have with the mill, and now we have new ownership, and it definitely complicates some of our hopes and dreams.
and with that said, that's a conversation I will be having with the new owner moving forward, because it needs to happen.
Yeah. We also get a lot of recommendations for that little park area next to the Brass Hub, and that's a similar situation. City's been maintaining that, but it doesn't technically belong to us. So we've had a lot of great ideas for how to make that a park space that's more functional. But it's not realistic yet to go and develop land that's not ours.
So this is, I guess from a real estate point of view, on that diagrams where it was the brownfield, is that what it was called? So when they determined those areas, is it because of the type of industry over the years and the mills? Or did they actually do any sampling?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not an expert on that, so, you know, I'm just
Do
gonna
you
say.
know,
take
Bill?
my-
When the brownfield thing came about, I think there were just proposed potential sites.
Cause as
Whether
a
they
real
actually
estate, there's
know if
stuff
there
for
was
sale
any-
down there,
Yeah.
and so what are you gonna require if someone buys that land? Are you gonna require testing because of this diagram that says it's potential?
Well, no, I don't think those.
I mean, I'm kind of
Anytime you do in commercial areas, you're gonna have to do some testing anyway, because you're required to have geotechnical report.
right,
So in that
they
geotechnical
test
report,
for
that could be
Sure they do.
hazard
where they
materials.
brings anything out, yeah.
I'm not positive, but been in every single one of those spots, and I think they're all portions of access to the line that goes out to the 105 ponds.
And that is
Not
not
a-
concerned.
Oh, yeah,
So I'm sorry if I'm speaking out of turn, but that's what they all look like to me.
Yeah.
And I
so
believe,
there, the line is under some
Well,
of those
and
properties.
you, if you look at the past history of all the cities around here, all those areas along the shorelines were all mill sites.
Mills, yeah,
So
that's why I was asking if they've
potentially
actually
could
tested it.
Some issues there, but when the brownfield project came out, they were just looking for possible sites.
Mhm.
Whether there was
'Cause
any
that's scary,
testing
looking
done
at
or
that.
anything.
And yeah, it is just risk.
And that's
Assessing
what-
risk, but they haven't done
They haven't-
scientific, you know, like sampling for environmental contaminants.
Cause now if I have someone interested in that piece of property down there, I'm gonna go check out this report because these possibly could be contaminated because of what was here years ago.
I believe, and we're gonna have to quit, and
Yeah.
get on with the council. I believe when the one site down there that was recently purchased, that we had, other parties interested, and they had to look at that property and some of the studies on that. And I'm on the Grace Harbor County Council of Government, and they work with individuals, businesses that are interested in that property to explore that. So that.
So they can explore it before they purchase?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and so we do. need
Yeah,
to
no, I know.
the
We
council
can just
meeting.
say thank you, everyone, and I will do probably some encores of this basic presentation for folks throughout the year. Give people more time to think about it, but you
Thank
don't
you
feel
for
like you
doing
have.
that. I mean, that's.
Oh, yeah. I just wanna let you all know who did see it tonight, so you don't keep coming back to the same presentation over and over. When it's something new, I'll let you know it's gonna
Yeah.
be something.
Yeah, Oh,
Okay,
appreciate it.
thank you very much, gentlemen. Okay, thank you. We have about a minute, and Chief, would you please lead us?
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is Mayor Springer. It is Wednesday, February 19th. It's 7 o'clock, and I call the meeting to order. Clerk Grove, how many citizens are joining us online tonight?
Show 6.
Okay, and how many guests do we have this evening?
We have
Chris,
Attorney Chris Coker will be joining us, and then we have Lieutenant Coker with the fire department joining us tonight.
okay. And usually Commander Timmons from Aberdeen is here with us. Usually he's not here tonight, but you have a
I
report.
spoke with him. He is on scene of a critical incident still.
Okay, okay. Do you have his report for
I
this? Okay, thank you. So I'm going to, Clerk Grove, would you do roll call, please?
Councilmember Skinner,
Present.
Councilmember Wynn,
Present?
Councilmember Spargo,
Here.
Councilmember Colette,
Here.
Councilmember Darcy.
Approval of the agenda this evening.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Please state your name.
Councilman Skinner.
Is there a second?
Councilman Colette seconds.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we move on to consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Councilmember Darcy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Excuse me. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Say, so we're on agreement. Okay, moving on, consent agenda.
I move to accept the consent agenda.
And
Darcy
state
seconded
your-
that.
Please state,
Councilman Skinner.
is there a second?
Darcy just said.
Yeah, Councilmember Darcy seconded that.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none? Moving on. Oh, I'm sorry. Kind of rusty tonight. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda? Oh, I said that.
Aye.
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 Or opposed? Hearing none, okay. Council comments. Are there any comments tonight from the council?
I think everyone's heard enough from me tonight.
Okay, okay. So we're gonna move on to committee reports. Auditing committee.
Had the opportunity to go today and look through vouchers and sign off on them.
I did as well today.
Parks committee.
We had to cancel our last meeting, but we have met with, Councilman Spargo and I have met with, the mayor just to discuss some of the work that's happening at the Olympic Terrace Park and how we can better support that work moving forward, and also just generally help citizens understand what their role is in that sort of work and what our role as the Parks Committee is. So we'll continue to help support with that work.
Public safety.
We haven't had a meeting yet this month. We'll try to get together and schedule one.
Public works.
We had a meeting earlier this month. We onboarded 2 new hires and they've started their training. So you might see some new faces locally around getting things done. So please feel free to introduce yourself and, get to know the new guys.
With that said, as far as public works, one of the things that all of our public works, even our long-term ones who have been here for quite some time, is they do have ID badges now. because we have gone through a transition with public work and also we've had a lot of new citizens move into the area. And if you see somebody coming up to your door and do something, we want them to be able to show ID. And so that'll be something new. So they will be wearing ID, even, as I said, all long-term public work employees. And so city officials report, Brooke Barr is out. She's a new Nana. And so
Yaya.
excuse me. So she actually took the week off. I think this is the first time since she came on board. And she puts in a lot of hours that she actually took time off. So, congratulations to her. Chief Lehman, would you like to report tonight?
Sure. Good evening to the council and city. We had a new reserve police officer start for us last Monday. It went well. We're grateful to have him on board and look forward to finishing a field training program with him. He comes to us from Pierce County. Hopefully we'll get an opportunity to introduce you to him to everybody in the city soon. We had a few incidents of some graffiti. Not to sound negative towards any media, but apparently there was an article about it that I didn't know about, wasn't interviewed for, but apparently off of a social media post, they wrote an article and published it. It's not a rampant problem. It was a couple of spots and we wanted to aggressively get ahead of it and ask the community to be watching for it. All the Department of Public Works to immediately get on those and clean them. I'm a believer that broken window theory is real and we're going to repair and fix things as soon as we can to minimize those things from happening in the future. But it has not been something that's just been raging out of control, and it's significantly different than the problem that Aberdeen has had. My personal opinion from what I saw of images. We've been busy with several criminal investigations, partnering with APS and several of the CPS, and another one from out of state, Utah to us type of a problem that's consumed some hours. But things have been managed just fine, and I'm happy to report we get Nick out for vacation, and I'm looking forward to moving back, so I'm not the only person around. That's it.
Moving. Oh, no, Commander Timmons, do you have anything that you'd like to report tonight?
Yeah, I can. Call wise, so just since January, I think we've had 19 calls to the city of Cosmopolis. I think we're at 138 total since May 1st. So I do want to add, I just want to thank Chief Lehman today. We had an incident in Aberdeen, shooting, homicide, and Chief Lehman was there. Very helpful. We do appreciate the assistance from. It's over. So our detectives are on scene now processing. I should thank Chief Lehman for his time.
Thank you, Chief, too. We appreciate that.
Chief, I had one question from a citizen. I let them know I'd pass it on. They were asking around the tagging, is there a way for you to know if it's like gang related or just random tagging from, the juvenile?
I'm not an expert on gang tags, but
I just told them
over the years, the tagging that I've seen that was gang related usually had specific imagery to it. I mean, it did not appear that to me, but have you guys had gang related?
You never know. We've had the same issues as far as the graffiti, and we've had the product teams we put out there to try to resolve it. So we do have some needs, juveniles from East County that are coming to our city and county. So we're working on it on our end.
Yeah. So again, if you see it, let us know because Public Works will be right on it. It's going to be cleaned up. It's not going to be left in the city. And that will be a deterrent.
And please don't report it via Facebook Messenger to us. I just want to reiterate that again for the reason that it still comes in that way. And voicemails for an officer that's on days off, then it's delayed in reporting. Just please call that non-emergency number that we've shared several times, and whether it's us or Aberdeen Covering, somebody will respond. And our Public Works guys know to take a picture of it for us so we can get it cleaned up as soon as possible. So, and if you see somebody with fingers with spray paint on it or something, report it immediately so we can have the opportunity to resolve it. That's all.
Okay, and we have, sitting in for Chief Valley tonight is Lieutenant Cook.
Coker, another Coker.
Yeah, what?
No relation. Thank you for having me tonight. Causing fire, we've responded to 62 calls for the year. The 4 personnel that are in Fire Academy have successfully passed their hazmat operations. We're starting on firefighter 1 as of this week. So we've got a couple more months to go. And the 3 that are in EMT class are doing very successful, and they've also got a few months to go.
Exciting. Thank you.
A
Bill-
question. Not trying to catch you on anything, but if a call comes in, we have residents, how long to a response? How long to they show up on scene?
Yeah, it depends on the time
Depends
of
on
day.
the time of the day.
Yeah.
It's been brought to me, we wait until Aberdeen responds and then we respond? You tell me that's different?
That is not true at all.
Thank you, thank you. I wanted that clarified, that you guys go out when calls come, when you man your equipment, you head out the door. You don't wait for somebody else to show up.
Correct.
Thank you.
Were those 62 calls in the city of Cosmopolis?
There is some that are City of Aberdeen for mutual aid, but the majority of them are all City of Cosmopolis.
And by mutual aid, you mean fire,
Yes.
response, automatic response.
And Aberdeen responds to us also.
Correct.
Joy. Okay, any other questions? We'll move on. Yeah. Building Inspector, Mr. Cedar.
Okay, Jeremy, in reference to our earlier workshop, I'll look at that ordinance.
I actually looked it up and you were correct.
Okay. And then I'll look to see what happened to the cemetery fees.
Well, I think,
Aside from the miscellaneous fees, I indicated earlier that I'm still working on the building permit fees as time permits. So we'll continue moving forward on that.
Bill, just to clarify, I do think I did not see the specifications for the fences in the same section as the requirement for construction.
Yeah, there are 2 different sections.
Yeah, so I think that has the potential to be confusing. I don't know if there's a good approach to that though.
So I'll have to look at that. As far as anything else, right now, I'm just got in some plans for the fire sprinkler system over at Pape, so I'm looking at that. They are moving forward on the remodel. Mostly what they're doing right now is a demolition over there at the Pape project, so we're moving forward. The school, Causey Grade School, that project is looking to moving forward in, I think, May. So, I believe that's about it as far as that, other than miscellaneous, little complaints here and there that I'm working on.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on to the mayor's report. Just again, the graffiti or any vandalism, we are encouraging citizens, please report. Again, I'll reiterate, call the non-emergent number. You can notify us down at City Hall. We'll contact Public Works so they can go out, take a picture of it and take care of it immediately. You know, right now we're back to normal weather. We made it through some pretty snowy, icy conditions. Just so citizens know and council know that Mill Creek Drive, if we were to get another snow event, ice event, that road will be closed. We did have to buy some more salt and things for the road. It is expensive. And so we want to focus on the 2 hills that need to be kept open and kept safe for our citizens. So that will be the target area. The other road will be closed. I know we had one day that the hill was not pulled off as early as citizens would have liked. Again, we have 2 new public work employees. I have to tell you, I'm impressed with them. They're right on it. We had a public work meeting. I can assure you that won't happen again. So those roads will be ready to go. Let's see. We're talking about other things. So the next thing, everybody, we mailed out letters to all of our citizens about the upcoming sewer negotiations. We want to be very transparent. We want to educate our citizens about the change that is coming. And it's not going to be great. We are going to be raising rates. We are going to be looking at different options. Do I know what that looks like? No, not at this time. October 16th, Aberdeen presented a brief history of the previous contract and did a presentation and discussion, how that contract with Aberdeen came about. I'll tell you, it's a very convoluted contract. My personal opinion, it should have been revisited several times to look at and renegotiate that. But here we are. And so we're in a situation that contract ran out at the end of 2023. And so one of the first options that we're looking at that was brought forward at that meeting that Aberdeen presented was, could Aberdeen buy our system? I don't know. That will go to their council. They will look at that. They will discuss it. And definitely, it would have to be something that would benefit the city of Cosmopolis, so we would not move forward on it. That's not my decision to make. That will be the council decision. But right now, that is out there. We will be bringing more information forward about other options every month in our water billing information, your bills. We will be providing information. We will be talking about this at every council meeting. When all options are considered, we will have a town hall meeting. I'm hoping that I expected more citizens this evening. I do want to say citizens have been very understanding. When they've been into the office after that letter went out, they have been very understanding, realizing that change is going to happen. It's not something that we want to have happen. It's not something that this administration or this council, it's something that we walked into. It's a situation that we're going to deal with, and we're going to do it in the best interest of our citizens. So just be open. Come in, talk to us, talk to your council. They are going to be informed along this process. Let's see, anything else? The team that is the negotiation team is myself, Clerk Barr, our attorney Chris Coker, CPA Tara Dunford, Councilman Skinner and Darcy, and then Mary Carr will be our citizen on that negotiation team, and then Chris Cockney, who is our water management system. So we have someone who is an expert in that field. I think we have it covered, so we have really good people as we move through negotiations. The other thing, we all know that costs are going up. And so as a mayor and the council here, we are trying to find ways to support our citizens. There are several things that we put on the back table tonight. You can take them. We don't have a lot of citizens. We don't have a lot of citizens here tonight. These can help our City Hall. We did show at Christmas time that Cosmopolis citizens are eligible for the food bank. This information is available. It's available at City Hall. There is through the Olympic Area on Aging Senior Emergency Fund that covers a lot of things that they can assist with. Utility bills, repair for washer, dryer, hot water tank, porch rails, grab bars, a number of things. It's a great agency to reach out. Please share this with other citizens. Starting tomorrow, there are energy assistance programs. There's 2 different programs. There's this one and this one. And they both go by different income level. Talk to citizens, let them know that tomorrow, they can contact, and the information again is back out on the table, the Coastal Community Action Program, how to get assistance for electricity and things like that if they meet the criteria. So just wanted to show that. Also to let you know that we are getting close to moving into the new municipal police building and police building. We are probably looking at toward the end of March, but we will be closing the office a few days here and there to start making that transition. And so we will give citizens and everyone ample notice. So that's kind of it for my report this evening. Moving on to new business. Councilman Skinner, would you present
Sure.
your information, please?
Sure. 7-8 months ago, after entering into the finance committee and understanding the finances of Cosmopolis and where we were at, I looked around at where we were spending money, and I didn't know that it was going for a good cause at the time. And it came up that we have a fire museum up on the hill, and it was it at the time wasn't open. Our police chief in a public meeting said, I don't know what's up there, I'm not involved with that, do some investigation. So I started some investigation on it. I started talking to some of the people that were from Engine Company Number 1 about what was going on and what was the museum, and where are the expenses at that we incur as a city? And they were in the insurance of the building and a couple of the vehicles. And so I went to them and said, we can't city-wise afford these, and we need you guys to pick this up if you want to continue the museum. And we've had, 4 or 5 meetings with 5 or 6 representatives from the Engine Company Number 1, Clerk Barr, myself, and Councilman Springer from the Parks Department, myself from the Financial Committee, and we've went over back and forth as to what we can do and how we can help and how we can do the cost. Clerk Barr was able to find through insurance to be able to reduce the total cost of the amount. We had started out at about $10,000 a year that it cost the city. Well, we've got down now where it's somewhere in the $3,000-4,000 range. And so we've continued to have discussions with Engine Company and got to the point where we said, Engine Company, bring a proposal to the city council. Come with what your future plan, what you would like to do and see done, and see if the council agrees or disagrees or where we can go from there. But we had kind of come to a spot where we weren't accomplishing or moving forward and said, okay, it's time for this. And so Mr. Davis has came tonight, I think, with some kind of a proposal or an idea of what they would like to see done or what their plans for the future is of the museum. And then it will be up to us as a council whether we agree or disagree or want to continue some kind of negotiations or right now, they don't have a lease. The lease expired, so the contract expired, and there is issues. I'm sure that Mr. Davis will let us know there's issues with the building itself. It's in disrepair and needs upgrade, needs to be fixed, roof, other parts of it. Steve kind of took me at a time a tour of what their future idea was to be of it. I like it, but right now, my concern is the finances. That's what I've got to be concerned about, and so that's where I move forward with what I'm trying to do, is accomplish on how they can take over the cost of the facility if that's what we decide to do. So, go ahead.
And then
Please.
just want to remind everyone, this is just a discussion period. Later we'll do our action.
Yeah, he's just giving a presentation.
So just kind of a brief overview, the museum, if you will, was built in the 70s by Engine Company Number 1. And it was a group of people that did fire musters and things like that. Pretty much the fire department at the time did fire musters up and down the West Coast. and they purchased equipment, things like that, and so we needed a place to store it. Volunteers got together. I have a little summary, and we'll put this out a little bit later, but companies like Rainier Timber and Boise Cascade, Warehouse are all donated raw materials. And the members got together, milled it by hand, sawed it into framing lumber, siding, shakes for the roof, all that stuff. So it literally was, it was built on city property, which is the old city public works shop area up by the tennis courts. At that time, that's really all it was a storage building for mustard stuff. And then it got a little bit more elaborate and became a museum after Denny York's passing, Chief York's passing. So over the years, we've had kind of we've had at least 25 years. Then it got extended, and then it got extended. A few years ago, 6 years ago, we were in negotiations to try to extend the lease, and it just never really happened. And we understand that now by things we see in our current situation, that the city had a lot going on, and we were lacking in some areas. So the engine company number one right now carries liability insurance on the building. We have as part of our lease. So we've been up to date and carry that. Engine company number one is a Washington State nonprofit corporation. And so we've carried that liability insurance and things like that. It has been opened in the past for Festival in the Park and National Night Out, and we've had car shows, and we've had music events, and we've done things like that up there over the past years. And it was really vivacious. At one point, it was Festival in the Park. We had a fundraiser there for the fire department. There was a lot going on. Festival Park changed, that venue changed a little bit, things kind of died down some. The fire department got smaller. That crew was still the same crew that was providing fire and EMS service and training and building maintenance and everything else, along with trying to keep the museum going. And so, everybody got burned out. We went through a real rough spot with some administration and things like that. So where we're at now is we're ready to get back and revitalize this thing. We did not know that the building had any coverage, insurance coverage. For years, we'd asked, as a fire department, why in our reports is it $40,000 for insurance coverage and all this kind of stuff. So water under the bridge, Clerk Barr's done a great job, along with the CPA, I'm sure, to help us understand what that is. So last year, we had a wind event that caused some damage up there. We let Darren know it happened. We went up there as volunteers. We cleaned it all up and patched some of the leaks in the roof, the shake roof. The damage hasn't been repaired. There's still drywall missing and things like that. But we don't have really a lease to be able to do any work on the building. That's where we're at. So it's really sad. So what we're hoping now is that we can put together a program. Our thought is it should be run under the Parks Committee. It sits on park property, it should be run under the Parks Committee. And we have a pretty good idea to actually revitalize it and get it up and running again and use it as an educational center and as our historical repository for not just Cosmopolis Fire Department, but also the region as a whole. We have several vehicles up there. They're all antique trucks. It's difficult to make them run, and there's a few of us that know how to do all that. So it's going to be a huge effort to get funding, to be able to apply for grants and be able to get we really feel like it needs to be another 25-year extension on the lease. And I have I guess our ask tonight is that we're willing to fund the insurance for the building. There are still some other stipulations. We've been able to make recommendations that help lower that. The building currently has flood insurance and it has earthquake insurance on it. We don't need that for that building. But anyway, we can go through that. My ask is that the Parks Committee, that we put together a committee to work with the members. We put a time frame on it, like by the end of March, to come up with a proposal to the council for a 25-year extension. 25 seems like a long time. The building's already 50 years old, so it's not that long historically. But part of the issue is that in order to go for grant funding and things like that, you need to have longevity to the program. The other thing is, you know, we've been rebuilding the fire department as well. This is a great way to get the new department and what's left of the old department working together towards a common cause and a common goal. And, you know, a lot of our volunteers came from visits to the grade school, visits to the fire station, visits to the museum when they're little kids. And they stick around the community and they grow up into volunteers. Coker happens to be one of those guys. So, you know, it takes a community to do this. And Councilman Wynn's vision, it really is a bold vision, and we have to dream big. And this place could be something worthwhile again, as it was in the past. So what I'm asking tonight is the city council to form a committee, preferably Parks Committee, to meet with us. Let's put a date on it by the end of March. The first meeting in April, we can put together a proposal for the council to vote on. And we've got a stack of paperwork that has what should be in a lease agreement, design and layout of the building, what we plan on doing with it, the education aspects of it, and all kinds of things. But it's really not appropriate to just present it tonight. We should have a council meeting with the committee, and that committee should bring it forward to the council.
So what I'm hearing you say that tonight, we will not be taking action at that time, but you will be asking the council to form a committee, look at this and bring it back to the council. Is that correct?
Correct. And the engine company they've authorized me we will pay the current insurance bill the city has and keep our liability insurance in place, which is already in place. But we'll pay we don't know exactly what the number is with the building insurance. It was about $3,400 is where we ended up. Some of the trucks were insured. The city didn't own them. Anyway, so we're working all those details out. That's the ask of the engine company. Number one is let's form a committee, come back first week of April, first meeting of April with a solid plan.
Thank you, Steve. So next item on there is item number 2. As all of you know, we have a CPA, Tara Dunford. Her contract has ended. We are asking that we continue her contract moving forward. A number of reasons for that. Clerk Barr is a great clerk, but she's still, like all of us, learning a lot about municipalities. Tara knows that's her expertise. She really helped us financially moving through this year. I also believe that it's good to have 2 sets of eyes when it comes to the budget and advising us how to move forward. She is looking at preparing budget documents, analysis, preparation of financial reports, other technical accounting and financial tasks. I can't recall what the amount was last year that we had requested. She did not use all of that time. We were very cognitive of the amount of time that we worked with her. Moving forward, it looks like this year, the proposal that she put out would be not to exceed 100 hours, which would be $19,500. I do not expect it at $195 an hour. I do not even expect us to use that, but I think she's a valuable resource and will really help us as we move forward with our resources and finances. So that will be an action item later to ask that we renew this contract. CPA, Tara Dunford. So next on.
Ask questions?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I know she hasn't used up her full allotment of the budget? Do you have any sense of how much,
That was
she has?
you. You know, I don't, and I have to tell you, as far as last year, you know, we all came in with very little understanding of what we were walking into, and she really had to dig through all of our finances. And with that said, I probably talked to her almost weekly, looking at finances, what we were spending, what we could spend, looking at staffing. You know, we're not in that place now. This will be assisting Clerk Barr moving forward, meeting the requirements that a city or municipality needs to meet. She will be working with Clerk Barr doing help me out here, reconciliation
Reconciliations.
each month. And that is something that we need to be on every month, looking at our budget very, very closely, and then making suggestions. And so as we move forward, this is going to be a challenging year. I think it is in the benefit of the city that you consider this. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yes, and I think she, because we still have issues around the audit report that need to be resolved, and I think will help in figuring out how that, gets, worked out too, so that, when the state comes back and, wants to see how we reconcile those, things that they want us to do, that it'd be good for her to be there to do that, to help with that. I think it's been a benefit in figuring out our finances and how they have got to where they're at. And I think she's she's not.
Non-biased?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which I think helps a lot. Yeah, having an outside person that with her knowledge, that I think it's been beneficial to the city to get us righted back up.
Mayor, what fund would this come out of? General?
It would come out of the general fund, is that correct, Chris?
Should be, I mean, it depends, I mean, it can come down to what she does. I
Right,
mean, if she does something for a particular entity or a particular department, it can come out of those funds. But generally, the general.
thank you.
I'm sure she'll tell us.
Yeah, she's, and just from my perspective, she's very reasonably, I mean, she's very efficient and responsive.
Yeah, it's been very thorough. It's been a benefit to have her, when we've had all the questions that we've had around all of our, financial problems, yeah. It's been, she can explain it to any other way where it makes sense.
I agree.
Okay, so moving on to the next, the other, item 3, resolution 2025-01. This will be, late fees for water will be $10. The other thing is Aberdeen did increase our water rate. We are asking only for a half a cent per cubic foot. It could be more, but we know there's a lot coming. And so we are just asking the council to approve the half cent per cubic feet for the water increase. Any questions?
Well, just a comment, it's 0.019%. It doesn't equate out to an actual half a cent, and that's what we have to go by, is what it is per cubic foot. It ended up, they said that it would be,
Just say 1/2 cent.
Yeah.
0.005.
they changed it then, because it was, when we just had our last discussion over it, it was the 0.19%. It's irrelevant. It's real close.
Right, I just took this from Clerk Barr, she's the number person.
Yes.
So it's a very small percentage. As I said, we could have raised it more, but knowing with the sewer situation, we're not doing that. So but we do need to look at it.
What was that final number again?
So Councilman Skinner, you want to reiterate?
No, if it's on the piece of paper, we'll go with what's on the piece of paper.
And it is, the resolution is in your packet. So Clerk Bar said an increase of 1/2 cent per cubic foot.
So I have a question. So are we looking at, okay, so our water, is this like a yearly, deal we have to approach every year with Aberdeen and the water?
Yes, it is.
So my question is, if this is such a small minuscule amount, is there, and we're probably going to be approaching this again next year, which it would, in my mind, will probably be more substantial because Aberdeen continues to raise. But is it something that, since we do know that we have a considerable amount of, we don't really know, but we know the sewer we're gonna have to raise, do we really need to bring on a water and then turn around and have to do, the sewer too on top of it? Can we not just like wait till next year and deal with the water? Cause our sewer will be, we don't know how long of a contract we're gonna have, it's gonna be yearly or bi-yearly. But it just seems that, constantly, if it's such a minuscule amount, is it really something that we need to put on citizens and possibly maybe let this one not happen, so then sewer, will be the impactful one?
So,
Just, my input on it.
so Darcy, Councilperson, Darcy. So the problem is, in the past, these issues have not been addressed the way they should. And we do need to raise this rate. We are paying for a water specialist that we have to have. And so we have to make sure that we can continue to pay for the required, I'm sorry, we have to be sure that we can continue funding and meeting the requirements of the state with the Department of Health, paying Chris Oakney, our water person. This is a very small increase. I think, yes, we don't know what we're moving forward to, but I would like to encourage the council to approve this, because we have to take steps moving forward. As Bill presented tonight, rates have not been raised. We cannot just set on these things. We have to be more proactive in how we are managing this city. And we do need to think, even a small amount, we need to bring revenue into this city.
I would like some clarification there, 'cause it looks like the rates were raised last year
They were.
through resolution 2313.
Mhm.
So am I understanding that the rate increase isn't being driven by Aberdeen, but by our administrative overhead?
No, we got a rate increase from Aberdeen. We received notification that Aberdeen was raising the rates to their citizens as well as Cosmopolis. And so you can see our increase is not what the past administration has done, but it is an increase that realistically, I don't want to raise anything, but realistically, we have to keep the city operating. And so that means that we do need to look at raising rates, and this is a very small amount. Talking to citizens who have come in, I think they understand. You look at every other city and they are raising rates.
Does anyone know, so this is by, each cubic of water, the cubic feet of water. Do we know what average utilization is in cubic feet for our citizens?
In the discussions that I had with Clerk Marr over this, and we just did a simple figuring, your average bill's $75 water usage. Times that by the 12 months and add a 0.5 cent per month to it, or, to the cubic feet that you have. I'm trying to think that we came up with a number that it's like between $10 and $15 a year, that you'll see your bill go up. Isn't that, you're doing a little bit?
So if a person was using like, just when I look at people's bills, let's just say they're using 500 cubic
Feet of water.
feet of water per time,
Mhm.
that would be an increase of $2.50 on their water bill for the month.
It wasn't that.
If I'm doing it by multiplying it by this percentage here. And so that's just an average. I mean, some people are using the 200s, some people are up to 1,000. It's all over the board, so.
That comes up to your $10 to $15 a year.
Correct, yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Right, and so as I said, none of us want to raise rates, but we need to keep the city functioning.
And my belief is that if we do just this half a cent, instead of coming every 2-3 years and saying we need 25 cents, it just is easier to ask people for a small, little increase each time than it is to hold off. And again, that's what we've ran into a problem here, is that we didn't charge accordingly to what our costs were. And it's caught up. We don't have that slush fund across the street to take care of all this for us.
Yeah, and I do recall the previous administration was essentially using city funds to subsidize water bills.
Oh, my Lord.
Folks weren't even paying
Yeah,
for their own water usage in full.
Yeah.
The city was paying for it.
yeah.
Chris, you're nodding, is there anything you want to add?
I've seen councils, nobody wants to raise taxes, nobody wants to raise costs, but what happens is you guys say, we'll kick it down the next year, and then the next council kicks it down to the next year, and then you wake up and it's 5 years down the line and you're looking at a 20% increase.
Yeah.
20% increases are not very palatable. And while we end up kind of at the same place, this allows people to budget. That's just my experience, but that's not legal advice. That's just what I've seen from other cities.
And you work with a lot of cities, so.
Unfortunately or fortunately, yes.
Okay, so this will be an action item. Any other?
Public comment time now.
Okay, public comment? Mr.
Steve Davis, 825 Fifth. It's not, part of it is that the water system has to function by itself, the sewer system has to function by itself. The other thing you're fixing here is the late fees. The city really hasn't been collecting late fees in the right manner. So the city, in the old ordinance, the city said your bill was due by the 10th of the following month. In previous administration, they moved that number up and they started charging late fees much earlier than the ordinance allowed. So you're rectifying that. The next question is, do you go back and credit people for the late fees that were corrected incorrectly over the past few years? That's the question. But part of what you're fixing now is that late fee issue, $10 if not paid by the end of the month. That's an important fix.
Okay, any other comment?
Yeah, I had just a little more clarification around the fire museum conversation. And Councilmember Skinner, you could possibly clarify. So what exactly is the city going to be having to pick up any funds around, or is this all falling onto the museum organization?
That's what's got to come up in a plan.
Yeah, but,
That's what we've got to nail down in a piece of paper plan.
so all we're
if-
voting for tonight is
We're not-
just to have a contract.
Yeah, I don't even think that,
Oh.
actually, I'm gonna pass this idea of
Oh.
creating tonight.
Oh, okay, okay,
On the-
okay,
on
because
the
I was
agenda.
like, yeah, because I don't feel like we're like. at a
No,
situation.
we're not at that, no,
Yeah.
we're not at that point.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and, Yeah, so, because there's still, I think, financial situations around the museum, like arrears and all that kind of stuff owed to the city, and that's been brought up, and how that all gets handled, right? As part of all that talks
Sure,
that are
yes.
happening.
That we've had, like I said, we went over many things, but we haven't came up with a concrete. It was lots and lots of talk, and we finally got to the point where we said, show us what you got an idea for. This is what Mr. Davis brought us tonight, what he would like to see us move forward with. We can discuss that, and next month come back and, just like he says, say yay or nay, or we'll move forward with it.
And has there been any, like, where handshakes between the old and the new? Because I know there's been some animosity around that.
now? Water? Oh, you're working on right now?
The new
It's a general-
business discussion was a resolution on.
Right, and.
And she
you had
just
it-
asked me to go back and answer the questions. That's all. But it's your guys' turn, not ours yet.
Any other public comment? Okay, so, new business for council action. Chris, I'm gonna ask you to help with, because we're not creating a new contract, but it's a proposal, if I understand, to the council to consider.
If I understood Mr. Davis's request, he wants a meeting with the Parks Committee to help present a proposal for the plan. Did I understand it correctly?
And I have that to present to the Parks Committee.
But
Okay, so you want to be able to present that to us and develop a plan.
Work with a small group of people for a month, get all the details worked out, then come back to the council with, here's a plan. And we can discuss all those things, if there's back money owed for whatever reasons or whatever it is.
Sure. And I
Then we'll
think,
discuss all those things.
I think we probably don't need,
I'm gonna
Action
refer to
here.
our council.
but,
Yeah, you don't need you don't need a vote, it's just,
Yeah.
you're gonna move it to committee.
and I'm sure Councilman Spargo and I will be happy to meet with you for the Parks Committee, and I'm sure Councilman Skinner.
Well, that's a meeting.
No,
You can't have three. You only have
And that's where, we had finance and
You only have
parks.
2 council members.
No, I'm saying, I'm sure that the folks from the Finance Committee would also be happy to work with you as separate. Yeah. So you have our support, but, approaching the plan and pursuing that, yeah.
Your question is how to handle this.
So how do we handle it? Do we need to take a vote if the, nope?
Just direct it into committee and the Parks Committee, I think, is gonna start with it, and then maybe it goes to finance and
Okay,
then eventually probably find its way to me,
okay.
and, we go from there.
So,
So I'm worried about you.
Committee instead of a vote.
Yeah, you don't need to vote to move it.
No, yeah.
Still learning this.
It was just in there as a contract vote item on our agenda. That's what she was
That's the
Right.
confusion I had,
Okay.
instead of.
Perfect, thank you.
creating-
So item 2, is there approval for Terrell Dunford TPA contract for 2025? Is there a motion?
Councilmember Collab moves that we do exactly that.
Councilman Skinner seconds.
Is there discussion?
I do have something I just have to say. Spending money on something for a third party, I see the benefit. But to follow up on the next one and ask our citizens to pay more on their monthlies, I feel like we're freely spending, but then we're asking for them to pay it back.
So we're not on that one? at this point?
We're not, but I'm still on the conversation before I say yes or no to the renewal of this contract. I'm having a hard time justify paying for something when then we are following up with the next, resolution to 2025-01. So is she, we don't know how many hours she used last year. That's I'm just wondering. We don't have any idea. That's something I will need to find out. Is she gonna exceed that amount of hours? You mentioned that you talk to her weekly. That could become an abundant, financial burden on the city.
So I'd like to reiterate, in the beginning, we walked into a mess. We walked into a city that had been functioning beyond its mean. Bringing in a CPA to get our budget under control, to understand what that meant. We have Clerk Barr. She does not know all the rules of municipality. Tara used maybe a third or half of the hours that were projected last year, and she was an amazing resource. We will probably maybe even use a third or maybe not even that much this year. And when you talk about spending money, we are going to be saving money, and she helped us do that. And so I will just say that.
Okay. That's all, that was my only discussion. That's the only topic I wanted to bring up. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second.
Okay, is there a motion?
It is.
Oh, we had a motion and a second,
Yes.
thank you. All those in favor
Aye.
or opposed?
Nay.
Okay, do we need to take roll call on this? Okay, moving on.
Pass it,
It passes.
or you're authorized to sign the contract.
Okay, thank you. Item 3, we're moving on to resolution 2025-1. Is there a motion to approve?
I motion that we approve this resolution to raise the water rates.
Is there a second?
I second the motion to approve resolution 2025.
Is there any discussion?
I will follow up with just revisiting the topic that I cannot morally ask the citizens to pay any more on their monthly utility bill. That's the only thing I have to add.
Thank you.
I'd like to add that I'm really struggling with this one.
So again, if I may add, I know this is hard, it's hard for all of us, but we do need to keep this city functioning. This is a small ask, and yes, the sewer will be a challenge, but you have to make your decision around this.
So we have a second to.
Okay, all,
Point of order, we need to vote.
so I'm gonna call a roll call vote.
You don't have to.
need
You don't have.
All those, I'm sorry, it's in the, she put it in the script. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed,
Nay.
we have,
Count.
so please do we call.
I think it was 3-2 nay, but you might want to, you could ask for, you could do a roll call just to confirm.
Okay, we're gonna do a roll call to confirm that. Councilman Skinner, how do you vote?
I vote to yay. It's just easy.
Councilman Wynn, how do you vote?
Vote yay.
Councilman Spargo, how do you vote?
Nay.
Councilman Collette, how do you vote?
Very hesitantly, yay.
Okay, Councilman Darcy, how do you vote?
Nay.
Okay, 3-2, we will approve this. Okay. Okay. Public comment at this time. Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on to council comment.
I do. I'm not done talking yet tonight. Again, trying to find ways to help out the fire department, city public works, anything that we can. We had a discussion on Tiger, the old horse-drawn carriage pumper out here about, it's here, it's not out on display, it's part of the city's history, tremendous history. Steve can go into it a lot more than I can about how we ended up with that and when, and it was the first operation machine here, whatever it was. Anyway, the chief now would like to have the space on his floor for actual firefighting equipment. And it's just there. In discussions in our public safety, Chief Lehman came up with, have we ever thought of the Carriage Museum in Raymond. And again, I've been here 69 years, you drive through Raymond. We mean you stop at Raymond, you drive through Raymond. Went online, looked at this museum and said, what have I missed? Why haven't I been there? Contacted the proprietors, the owners of it, Jerry Bowman and his wife, and amazing. Told him what we had, sent him a couple of pictures, and he said, can I come and look? And he come down here, and he was like a 5-year-old. On top, inside, upside, everything, looked at the wheels, told me how to fix this and do this, and how beautiful and how amazing of a machine that is. And I go, boy, and I got people that can give you the history on it, more than I can, but here's my short rendition. They would love to have it in their museum. They would love to take it. He'd said, I put about 4 months into it in my shop, getting it all painted and fixed and new grease and everything else that needs to be done to it. He said, and then it would be a centerpiece in our museum. It would be a focal point. We would put PR, we would have you guys come down, we present you with a plaque, well, you know, the papers, everybody else. Good publicity? Wow, how could that happen? And so excited about doing this. I contacted Mr. Coker today, just what do we have to go through, how to go about donating or loan a permit, just what the plaque out there says, it's been permanently loaned to the city of Cosmopolis by Unigard Insurance, which is not even an insurance company anymore.
That's correct.
And so there sits this machine, and not many people get to see it. And I am one that I'm gonna push that we propose that we put the paperwork together to make that happen, to have that that piece of machinery end up at that museum down there with a plaque that says all about where it came from, Cosmopolis, and what it is and everything else. We cannot loan it to them. We either have to have this designation of permanent loan or donated to them for insurance purposes, for them as well as, I guess, for us. Is there a tax break if we do give it, it's worth X amount of dollars? Ideas were out there of what it might be worth, and we understand the whole process of going through the deal of surplusing. We might have any idea where it would end up, who would have it, and what they would do with it. This way we know where it's at. And I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea. I've even discussed a little bit with some of the guys that have the history with it, Mr. Davis included, about it. And they thought, man, that might not be a bad idea as well.
It'd be maintained too.
Yeah, it'll be taken care of. Now, if this new plan and this new museum park and this whole idea comes together, then, okay, we're looking at that it would be ours and we'd have it up there. I just don't feel real rosy about that. I'm more in tune of, in this fantastic facility, showing off that piece of equipment. And that's it. So, okay, those were my comments about this. And I'll bring up more as time goes on and we find out just what the paperwork entails to do it. And then I think that the council can come to some decision with it. We'll vote on it and come to some kind of a decision with that piece of equipment.
Good. Thank you, Councilman Skinner. Thank you for your time. Appreciate that. Any other council comments tonight?
Yeah, well, in response to Councilman Skinner's comments, I myself and I think a lot of citizens got to see that truck at the holiday tree lighting ceremony, and I was really impressed by it. I guess I'm reticent to give away such a valuable asset to another city if it's got so much. If it's so great, why are we so eager to get rid of it? Particularly if we have a fire museum that might potentially value it as an exhibit. So I would just want to hear more about, is there urgency in offloading it? Is there interest from engine company number one in acquiring it? Is it something that we should be looking at putting up for auction? If it's such a burden to us and has value as an asset. So yeah, those are just my thoughts about that, but, I'm open-minded. I would just like to hear more about the options. You know, with regards to the, water rate change, I think that, you know, I share a lot of folks' concerns about the rising cost of living. I think that those are, this is not going to be a changing reality for us. Cost of living is just, the cost of everything is going up. And it's not something that we can always curtail at the local level. It's going to be, you know, impact at the federal and state level. Economic policy and even global policy is going to affect the cost of living for all of us. I do think that the rate change is necessary given those rising costs. And I do think that the contract for CPA is going to end up being important for the city's finances moving forward and making sure that we're making prudent decisions about how we manage finances. Good financial guidance pays for itself. That's what I believe. So I empathize with folks about what a difficult decision that is and the difficult decisions to come, but I think that the council made the right decision tonight. So thank you.
Any other comments?
Yes, I just want to follow up. I do want to thank Tara and the CPA. I've enjoyed all of her presentations. She does bring a great benefit to the city. As Councilman Nguyen stated, we all have to think about the city, the citizens, the community, and everyone at this table thinks a little differently. I know there's only a couple citizens and, you know, our officials here tonight, but I just, past administrations were a stamp pushing yes kind of table, and sometimes no's come across and people think of them differently. So I just want to say I do see the benefit, but I just couldn't justify it this evening. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think if we use her constructively and not just frivolously use her because she's accessible to us, I think we can curtail the cost we're spending on her to a minimum where it's beneficial for us, but not costing us so much as, I'm sure this last year we used her a considerable amount. I'm hoping that going into the next year, this next year, we don't have to use her as much, so that cost should be more minimal. And maybe we don't have to, you know, I think if we just make sure that it's being used in a conservative way to where we only really need to contact her when we really need to. And that way we can try and keep the cost down, not exceeding or pushing close to the limit just because we can. You know?
And I do want to say that Tara, the first person who will remind us that I'm on the clock. And I do believe it will be minimal and it will benefit the city. And I appreciate it. I appreciate that we aren't rubber stamping. I appreciate everybody's point of view. And I think we've been a good working council bringing everything to the table. Any other comment before?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment there. I agree with using her conservatively, and that said, I do believe she's actually saved us more than she's cost us.
Oh, my goodness.
As far as money. And that, keeping her on board like this would continue that trend. And I'd also, I kind of wish Steve was in here because I'd like to direct this at him, but I'd like to see the city working with Engine Company Number One to try to get that museum up and running. I'd like to see that. So,
Yeah, and if the machinery, the historical piece out there, I'd like to have the fire department explain what it is that they need the space for, what it is, why it needs to be booted out of here and the whole thing, and is there not some other way, you know, something else around that situation too. I'd like to have a little more conversation around that aspect.
well, with it sitting here, the public doesn't get to see it.
Well, that's what I mean. Well, I mean, is there a reason why they can't? I mean, you know, I can't, like, one weekend a month or something, open the doors and let them see. I think there just should be more conversations, maybe possible. I like the idea of the museum, having it as someplace for it to be able to go, but I don't wanna be like, well, let's just do it because the fire department says they need space. I'd like to have a little conversation around that whole aspect.
Yeah, having toured the facility over there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they have room for it.
No, that's, they would have to do a little remodeling, I think. Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I motion to adjourn the meeting?
is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry, I was gonna-